How's it going, everybody? Just wanted to do a few quick announcements for you guys, let you know what's going on as far as upcoming episodes and the upload schedule. So, this episode that we're recording today is going to be on forgiveness versus malice, which is the next episode in the Virtues and Vices series, episode 6. And then 2 weeks after that, on following Saturday, 2 weeks from this Saturday, is going to be an episode about following the example of Jesus as a man. And so, yeah, we're going to be following the bi-weekly upload schedule consistently is the goal. And the other little update slash thank you that I wanted to give to you guys is 100 followers on Instagram. We recently reached 100 followers. So
Yay.
thank you, everybody. Appreciate that very much.
Jesus only had 12 followers, so we're doing pretty good so far.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Almost 10 times Jesus, dude. That's wild. This is Matthew chapter 5, 43 through 45. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust.
We lived in a world where all of our enemies became better people. That's like a near perfect world.
You know, this makes me think of the Apostle Paul, because before he became probably the most well-known apostle of them all, he was a Jew who was persecuting Christians. He was murdering Christians for their beliefs. Yet God still used him to write some of the, most well-known books in the Bible. So how much more can he use these people that we view as our enemies in our lives? Welcome to the Masculine Spirit Podcast, everybody. We are going to pursue truth and excellence as men under the leadership of Christ. I'm Robert Krause, and I'm joined by my co-host Noah Bills. And today's discussion is going to explore the many benefits of forgiveness, as well as the damaging nature of malicious intent. So I'm very excited to get into this one. Forgiveness is a huge thing that everybody has to deal with because everybody is wronged in different ways in their life.
But also forgiveness is also just a huge core part of Christianity, arguably. I think it's like one of the biggest takeaways I've gotten from it personally.
Yeah, you have the concept of Christ forgiving us, God forgiving us, and then us passing on that gift to others. And yeah, it's incredibly important. It's central to the Christian faith, like you mentioned. And I think it's just something that frees you as an individual as well, frees you from some of your baggage, some of your negative emotions that people tend to hold on to.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely allows you to let go and move on from it 100%. Because if you're not forgiving people for their actions against you, then it's just something that you're holding on to and you're letting fester. You're not going to be able to grow and develop from because you're kind of living in those moments in the past, so to speak. So forgiveness is definitely highly important.
It's essential. So Luke chapter 17, verses 3 through 4 says, "Pay attention to yourselves. If your brother sins, rebuke him, and if he repents, forgive him. And if he sins against you 7 times in the day and turns to you 7 times saying, I repent, you must forgive him." 7 times, dude? That's too many times.
I couldn't do it. After the 6th time, it's come on.
Come on, bro. What are you doing?
You lying, you fiending. I mean, in my head, I don't think I would take that like quite as literally, because in a sense, like if somebody kept going back and forth, like immediately, doing something and then saying, "Oh, I'm done, dude. I'm not gonna do it," and then immediately does it again, it makes you really question whether that person's actually repentful. I think, this verse is saying in a sense, like if they are truly and wholeheartedly repentful, then you forgive them. But it's also a good thing to recognize, like, oh, is this person actually like sorry for what they did, or are they just saying that and taking advantage of my goodwill and nature because they know I'll forgive them?
Exactly. That's how I take it too, is that true repentance, you got to forgive somebody who's truly repentant. But sometimes there are signs, there are things that you can see in a way someone is behaving that would lead you to believe that they're not truly repentant. And I don't think that means that you don't forgive them on your own. Like you yourself can't forgive them. But whether or not they're able to receive that forgiveness on their side of things is dependent on if they're truly repentant of what they did.
Because otherwise they're just kind of lying. You ever have somebody lie to you?
No, nobody's lied to me. I'm too intimidating. People like they don't mess with me like that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. You don't have to forgive anybody because nobody ever trespasses against you at all.
Yes,
It's amazing. I love that.
yes. But yeah, I mean, you have this concept of forgiving somebody multiple times, even if they're, repeating the same thing over and over. If they are truly repentant, then we're called to do that, which is very tough because
For sure.
it can feel like you're being taken advantage of. It can feel like people don't respect you or that there's no progress being made. But sometimes in these situations, God is working in a person's life behind the scenes and you can't necessarily see what's going on. You just see like this offense that they keep committing, whether it's against you or against other people.
Yeah, it's very difficult to respond to, for sure. I mean, and this is like another thing where like you can forgive somebody and still like put up extra boundaries after the fact and be like, cool, I understand you did this. You repeatedly did this, and I do wholeheartedly forgive you. But because of those things, I'm gonna allow myself to put up this wall that you're not allowed to cross anymore because of those things. I forgive you, and I truly want the best for you, and I want you to grow. But I have the right to say that you're not allowed to be in this part of my life anymore because of these things. Um,
Yeah,
that's like where you kind of have to put your head at, just because forgiving somebody doesn't mean you allow them the same things or benefits of your friendship or relationship that you had before. Forgiving them is more of letting go of their past transgressions, understanding that, what they did was wrong. They understand what they did was wrong, having the knowledge that they are truly resentful of it, that they repented, that they don't want to do those things anymore, but you are completely allowed to deny them the space that they occupied before. Let God work in their lives. It doesn't have to be you that's the one saving them, changing them, or anything.
sure. We are not called to save people as Christians. We're just called to tell the truth, to preach the gospel that Jesus has preached to us, and the rest is in God's hands.
We can guide them the best we can, but you don't have to take it onto yourself to make these changes in somebody's life. Ultimately, they have to make those choices for themselves, and you put yourself at a certain distance based off how comfortable you are with them and what kind of relationship you have with them, yada, yada, yada.
And it definitely is biblical to put up boundaries with people in certain situations, especially when it comes to more serious sins. If it's like some kind of, I don't know, sexual misconduct or like, God forbid, like murder. We are still called to forgive those things. Does that mean that you have to be best friends with the person who like murdered your family member? Obviously not.
I don't think I would want to.
No, no, probably not. So yeah, you can use sound judgment to put up boundaries in those ways.
For sure. But forgiveness in those contexts is really hard. Do you think you could forgive somebody who killed a family member?
I don't know. I don't know. I've never had anything nearly that bad done to me.
Really? I
So
thought that was like pretty common. Happened to my buddy last week.
You happened to your buddy last week?
Yeah, I killed his dad.
For sure. Well, I forgive
Surprisingly, he
you.
didn't forgive me. Thank you for forgiving me. That's cool. He didn't forgive me. That's fine. But no, yeah, that would.
You only need one person's forgiveness, and then you're covered. So
Yeah. Just get one
yeah,
random person to forgive you, and you're chill. You don't even
yeah,
have to
yeah.
repent. They just like forgive you automatically.
But is an interesting question because you never really think about those extreme circumstances until you're put in them. And I think it would be presumptuous of me to say, yeah, I'd be able to forgive somebody if they did that to me. But
I mean, we
when
are
you're
called to
actually,
forgive, but that is a very difficult thing to forgive.
it is, it is, yeah. So I think we just have to be mindful of that and be asking Jesus to make him more and more like himself all the time, so that we're able to face those things as they come up. So Ephesians chapter 4, verses 31 through 32 says, "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you."
Oh, that's crazy. You know that God wants us to be nice to one another.
I know it's a tall order. I mean, I think it obviously goes deeper than being nice. Being nice is part of it, but the way that I view the application of this verse is like in everything that you do, every interaction that you have, you want to have goodwill for the person that you're interacting with in your heart. You don't want to be guided by any kind of wanting to bring people down, wanting to cause them pain or harm. Yeah, your motivation should always be to benefit the people around you.
I definitely believe in like, you know, bringing in that walk, being in the atmosphere of just like pure heartedness and kindness, just kind of everywhere to go. I always try to be as like understanding and kind to like food service workers or anybody when I like go out. If anything, if there's any mistakes or anything gets slowed down, I don't want to be one of those people that like gets on them because like my food's being 5 minutes later than it should be, yada yada yada. It's really just kind of like those small things and small interactions you have with people, especially strangers, that I think is very telling to your own heart. Like if you can't bring yourself to be decent to people you don't know, who you don't have any predisposition to be, mean or bitter towards, I think it really shows how you internally feel. On top of that, it just cultivates an atmosphere of kindness and forgiveness and patience in just everybody else around you. If we lived in a world where people are just constantly rude and just at each other's throats for no reasons, there would be so much malice, if I could say, festering around. I think it would just kind of bring us all down as a society and as a culture. I do kind of like that we have like this politeness culture that, we're always like, oh, excuse me, sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you, stuff like that. You don't necessarily see it everywhere. As somebody who's worked in food service, I've interacted with customers who like to be blatantly rude or needy for no reason. That's a whole other thing. But those things like really like can bring you down, even if you don't know that person on a personal level. I think the small actions that we make, and the choice of words especially, can really impact somebody's day and their emotional state at that time. So I think your choice of words and how you treat other people that you don't know, people that you do know, matters significantly just in so many different ways.
Sure. Yeah, you have this aspect of it where you're interacting with people on a daily basis, people that you may not have very deep relationships with. And yeah, you obviously want to be gracious and kind and understanding in those circumstances. But then on the flip side, what if we're talking about a situation with somebody who you actively have conflict with, somebody that you would consider an enemy, somebody who is standing in your way, maybe they've caused you pain in the past. we're even called to have goodwill towards that person. So like, what do you think that looks like?
How do you deal with people you have conflict with? So you still treat them, the same. You still treat them with kindness and respect and forgiveness.
You try to give them the space when you can. Um, I think as Christians, we are called to be the bigger person. We are the ones that'll take the hits first, let the other person see that we're taking the hits and not trying to get any sort of retribution. Um, sometimes like people just instigate things, kind of have this weird desire for conflict. Like they just like look at you out of nowhere, decide that they don't like you, and they want that to be known. They want something to be done about it. I think sometimes silence against that is a really good answer because it shows them that all the work and all the energy they're putting into disliking you or hating you or, conflicting you is going nowhere. You're not making any stance against it. Really shows them that what they're doing is a waste of time and also allows them to kind of reflect on all this bad energy is only coming from me and nowhere else.
Yeah, because a lot of the time, people, when they are instigating things like that, they just want a reaction from you. So if you don't give them the reaction that they want, or any reaction really, they're going to be disappointed and likely not repeat the same thing with you because they're like, oh, this guy doesn't act the way that I want him to. He doesn't follow my little script that I'm trying to go by.
100%. And honestly, that's even like, this is like elementary school playground rules. You got a bully who's on you all the time. Like bullies are picking on kids because they like the reaction. They like seeing the little kids scream or cry or run away or all this stuff. You just do nothing, you're not entertaining. They're going to stop messing with you because you're not giving them what they want. You bring the same thing into adulthood. You allow yourself to be seen as unbothered. And even better, I would say, is even with those kind of people who are treating you this way, you pull a 180 and you treat them with utter kindness and respect. And then I think it shows it even more to them that like, oh, like this is not only is this like one-sided hate on me, like even despite these things, this person's willing to go out of their way to still acknowledge me and respect me and be kind to me for these other things.
Dude, this is reminding me of a verse that I actually didn't pull up for this episode, but it's like very applicable to what we're talking about right now.
Google it.
Let me just search it up real quick.
Let the AI on Google tell you what the verse says and what it means.
Exactly.
I need
Where's
my
the
AI
full
Bible.
verse?
It also reminds me of this meme with the elephant where he gets a peanut thrown at him. And then the little kid who's throwing the peanuts like, Mommy, why isn't the elephant responding? And the elephant says something like, because I really want to find this. You find your Bible verse, I want to find my meme.
Yeah, I got the verse. I got the verse pulled up. I guess, we're getting two different sides of the same coin. So, this is Romans 12:20. It says, "If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head."
If you want to get back at somebody, you throw those burning coals in their head, dude.
Yeah, it's a extreme picture that's very applicable to this because it's like if somebody comes at you trying to cause problems, cause conflict, and you meet them with graciousness and kindness, it's heaping burning coals on their head. It's like it shocks them. It completely flips around what they were trying to do in that interaction.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was saying before, it really just like shows exactly where all the hate and bad stuff was coming from and just drops it right on their head.
Yeah.
Also, I found the quote that I was looking for, the elephant and
Yeah, go ahead.
because like the kids like are throwing rocks at this elephant. It's like, oh, why isn't it doing anything? And the elephant says, because there's no answer greater than silence and no punishment greater than forgiveness. So again, with the burning coals thing, the punishment is making the other person realize that all this is stemming from me Like, this person's doing absolutely nothing. I'm just generating all this bad will and intent on my own. And that realization, dumping the hot coals on your head is really telling, really just like an aha moment. Like,
That was me. That was bad. I should have done that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like bringing their own ill will down upon themselves.
exactly. Crazy.
It's good stuff. That's a good meme. You gotta pull up some more memes coming up.
Yeah. I think the rest of them would not be appropriate for this context.
I'm not surprised. Yeah. All right. So next we have Matthew chapter 6, verses 14 through 15. For if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. What I take from this is don't be a hypocrite. Don't be accepting the forgiveness that Jesus offers to you, but then not offering it to the people in your life, because we're all sinners. We all fall short of the glory of God, and we have to be offering that same graciousness to the people around us.
So, I mean, you could even look at like specific cases with this, like if, like you said, not only with just like forgiveness in general, but I would say you can apply this to just specific actions. Like if you're going around doing all these things, but then somebody does it to you, the whole what goes around comes around. You should be willing to forgive people for what they do if you go out and do those same things, and vice versa. You don't want to be a hypocrite. Nobody likes a hypocrite. I think that's kind of self-explanatory.
Sure. You reap what you sow as well.
Amen, brother.
I don't believe necessarily in the idea of karma. It's more of a spiritual belief from other spiritual avenues, but the concept of reaping what you sow in the Bible is as close as we can get to a concept of karma. So I think there is some truth in it, where it's like you're giving out bad energy, you're mistreating people, you are judging people in the recesses of your mind. You're going to be met with the same type of energy in a lot of situations, and those things they might come back in a way that you will not expect and might not be ready for.
100%. Yeah, you reap what you sow is definitely, that's something that I think about a lot. And I think like you can almost like see like that sort of stuff kind of happen immediately, if you do go out and just meet people with, discontent and malice. Like there are a lot of people who are very readily match that with you. You go out picking fights. There's also people out there that have no issue, returning that. Even in a sense with me, like I don't consider myself a very like in your face, like confrontational type of person. But in certain instances, like if you come up to me and you disrespect me out of nowhere for no reason, like I will match that because I wasn't asking for it. But it sounds like you were asking for it. So who am I, help you reap what you sow, so to speak.
Sure, and I think that brings up something that's important, which is that we're not saying in every time where somebody wants to try to start something with you or is mistreating you that you should just submit to it and be quiet and turn the other cheek, so to speak. Like there are situations where it's appropriate to respond with, an argument against what that person is saying, or to stand up for yourself. And yeah, so it's kind of a case by case basis.
100%. Yeah, because I mean, I'm not saying, go out there and just like, if somebody, puts like an inch out for a fight, you like, meet them all the way there. But like you said, it is case by case. Like I'm not gonna always try to like match that energy. I think it's more about like what you need to do in the situation to like kind of calm things down. If somebody's kind of going full frontal aggressive, that aggression might need to be kind of put down with with a little bit of aggression on your side. But if you are able to kind of bring things down in a calm, quiet manner, I think that's ultimately the best way to go, no matter what.
Yeah, it comes back to approaching every situation with goodwill, because you want the best outcomes for the other people, and you also want the best outcome for yourself and for, maybe your family's there, your friends are there. Like
Anyone you're with, yeah.
Yeah, you want the outcome to be peaceful and beneficial as possible. You were talking about people that are just looking to pick a fight. And I think another way that these tendencies manifest themselves is in people who complain all the time. I'm sure you've been around lots of people like that, just they're not fun to be around. Everybody has the person at work who's like, oh man, I can't believe I had to come in today. Like, oh, it's so busy. What are we gonna do? Like, oh, I don't get paid enough. And it's just like constant all the time. They always find something. Oh, the manager sucks. The manager's so rude to me.
It makes it very difficult to work in that environment.
It does. And maybe some of those things are true.
For sure.
But
no, a lot of that stuff is always true,
Yeah, what good does it do to constantly reflect on those things and to not train yourself to just get past it, yeah, and put up with those things in a lot of situations.
You're just kind of like wallowing in self-pity at that point. And I mean, there's really like no win to that. Like, yeah, the situation sucks. Like, are you just going to keep thinking about how the situation sucks? Like, you can, go for it, dude. But that's not going to help you at all. And it's another thing to like bring that to the exterior, to bring that to other people who don't have control over the situation. It's one thing to be like, oh, this sucks, this needs to be changed, I'm going to bring this to somebody who can change it because I think that would be good for us, versus, oh, this sucks, it can't be changed, I'm just going to show this to everybody who already knows it and just kind of bring the mood down even more than it already is. I mean, what if somebody's having a decent time and then you just start bringing out all these things that like are just bringing them down too, an attitude is definitely a game changer and things like that. You don't want to sit in that negativity and those bad feelings. You understand the situation and you just move on. You keep going.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very contagious attitude because somebody will hear another person complaining and be like, oh yeah, they're right. And then they start talking about it. And then pretty soon everyone in the entire area is talking about how much they don't like being here, how much they wish it was different, it's unfair. Like, it just spreads very quickly unless you're a person who's like very cognizant of those things and is like, no, I'm not really feeling the complainy vibe today. I'm not feeling it. Yeah, it spreads very fast. So we have James chapter 1, verses 19 through 20. Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Yeah, I mean, I think we were talking about this a bit earlier with the discussion of confrontation and not going with our base reactions in those situations, not just defaulting to what our emotions are telling us to do.
Not like escalating the situation by acting out in anger or whatever other emotions are present. We want to de-escalate.
Yes, that's usually the ideal situation. But you also have examples in the Bible of Jesus escalating things. Most of the time he's seeking peace and trying to de-escalate, like you were saying. But you have the classic example of him coming into the temple with a whip and like turning over the money tables because they turned the house of God into a place of materialism.
For sure.
And yeah, so like there's a time and a place.
I mean, I think in those situations, it's more of just kind of like, it's a demonstration of power on like Jesus' side, him establishing his authority and being like, hey, like, I'm here to make myself known and to make these injustices unknown. That sort of escalation makes sense, because you're trying to like bring attention to something. If you don't have that sort of authority, if you're trying to address something like that, you're not going to get noticed and things won't really change. Those sort of escalations make sense. But if you're already known, if you already have the stage, so to speak, that's when you want to be the quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger kind of mentality. That's when, all eyes are on you. Okay, this is my time to bring things down, to de-escalate the situation.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and you really don't want to assume that you should escalate a situation when you're not coming from a place of, you were saying authority, but yeah, when you're not coming from a place of like goodwill and virtue, and like already being a person who really has the ability to properly judge the situation. Humans are so flawed in their ability to judge things. Jesus is obviously not flawed in his ability to judge things. So him doing something like that is much more feasible than one of us.
And it makes it like difficult to kind of understand exactly, on the case by case basis, like how to go about things. But I think the bigger takeaway from this verse is more about, not letting anger overrule you. When you're acting out in a place like that, you are likely to make misjudgments, likely to act out of your own wants and selfish desires. You're allowing your emotions to rule the situation rather than just taking a step back, calming yourself down, really listening to what's going on, making more practical judgments, and then re-entering the situation, knowing, okay, A, B, and C is going on. We want these kind of XYZ solutions. How are we going to get there? How is that going to start? Yada, 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 yada.
And sometimes in those conversations, this is why I love the part of the verse that says, be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, because sometimes in these conversations, like somebody will say something or they will have said something like 2 minutes ago that just pisses you off, and you're just waiting for the opportunity to respond to that. But since they said that thing 2 minutes ago, you haven't been listening to anything else they've been saying that entire time, because you've just been waiting to jump on that opportunity to get back at them for that one thing they said like 2 minutes ago. But this is like, no, listen to everything that the person says, even after they say things that hurt you, and then respond soberly and calmly to everything that they've said.
And it's also good just to evaluate, if people always end up saying things that hurt your feelings. We are human. We have, all these different types of sensitivities. It's fine. That makes sense. But it's also good to evaluate whether or not like that person is coming from a place of like they want to offend you. Like they could just be kind of saying things on their end from their own limited perspectives and experiences and not knowing that they're, accidentally insulting you. You don't want to, if somebody's not intentionally trying to offend you, you don't want to accidentally like escalate the situation to like, oh, we're gonna get personal like that, dude. Is that how it's gonna be? You're gonna insult lacrosse players like that? I'm a lacrosse player. I want to insult
Yeah.
something I know about you, even though you didn't know I was a lacrosse player like that or whatever. That's a random example. So it's another good reason to kind of step away from the anger of that moment and really listen to more of what's going on, the context of the situation, and then evaluating whether or not these sort of things need to be brought down.
Yeah, it's the idea of don't assume that there is malice where it could be ignorance. That's a saying that I like a lot, because it's very easy to assume that people are out to get you when you get offended. But maybe they just don't know something about you. Maybe they are ignorant on a certain topic. That happens all the time.
I mean, we're all ignorant of so many things. We don't even realize it. Talk about these things all the time.
Yeah. We have Ephesians chapter 4, verses 26 through 29. It says, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and give no opportunity to the devil. Let the thief no longer steal, but rather let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands, so that he may have something to share with anyone in need. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear.
So there's a few things here to unpack. In the beginning, saying, do not let the sun go down on your anger. Just kind of referring to don't let these things kind of go unaddressed. If there are things that are upsetting you and making you feel these certain ways, people doing things against you, This is where forgiveness comes into play. This is where you need to get a better understanding of what's going on and the person and their intentions. Sometimes they have completely malicious intentions, and what they do is completely wrong, and they know it's wrong, and they want to do it regardless. There's a certain amount of acceptance that you have to get to with that. You can't keep letting that fester and that emotional damage kind of just sit and grow. It needs to be addressed in however way appropriate for that situation.
For sure, because if you let it fester, you let this resentment build inside of you, and that is clearly not going to help with forgiveness. The more you let it build up, the worse it gets. The more you have time to ruminate on these things and think about, man, they were so wrong here, and I was so right when I said this. You want to address things as they come up, which can, in the moment, it can seem like you're being a confrontational person, like you're, maybe to the other person, it can sometimes seem like you are trying to pick a fight. But this idea is just to not allow those things to fester, like you were saying, because you have, just like in the physical realm, if you get an injury, you want to treat it. These conflicts that we have are kind of like injuries in our relationships, and they need to be treated and healed as soon as possible. Yeah.
Sometimes you can't rely on the other person to step forward and apologize for these things. Sometimes you just need to be the one who kind of takes a step back from the situation, chooses to forgive them wholeheartedly, and then moves on. And again, when these people act against you, that's a good time to kind of figure out what kind of boundaries you need to put up as you move on. Don't let them into certain aspects of your life, but understand that what's happened has happened. You can't live in the past always. You need to be able to grow from this as well. So you need to patch things up on your end as best you can, and as soon as you can.
Definitely, yeah. And sometimes people aren't ready to do that together if you have a conflict with another person. So yeah, sometimes you have to kind of do the best that you can on your own to deal with the issue. And when that person is ready, then discuss it with them. But yeah, the second half of this verse talks about using words to edify other people rather than tearing them down or causing them harm, which is, I think it's directly related to this idea that we've been talking about addressing issues as they come up, because when you're addressing these things with another person, you want to be speaking in a way that is going to bring healing. You don't want to, when you're going into this discussion of the conflict, you don't want to cause even more inflammation of what's going on.
Yeah, in any bad situation, you don't want to add fuel to the fire. Also, kind of going back to the work situation we laid out earlier, where you just have that person just speaking ill on the current circumstances and just like collectively bringing everyone down, because all you're hearing is more and more bad news about the current lunch rush you're in or whatever it is. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, because in the end, all you're doing is just adding more to an already bad situation. You really want to make the most out of things. You want to build people up. You want to inspire people with your words and with your actions. And understand, again, the situation sucks, but there's like two approaches to it. You can either try to do what you can to make it better for everybody else by working hard and bringing good optimism to it, or you can be pessimistic and just try to bring everybody down to this weird low place that you happen to be in as well.
And a lot of those times, the people who are complaining will bring up this argument of like, oh, come on, I'm just being realistic. I'm just telling it how it is. Like, what, you're going to try to be optimistic in every situation? Like,
hell yeah.
This is not teaching us to be ignorant of the fact that we go through things that suck. This is teaching us to have goodwill and to be positive in spite of it.
A good attitude. That changes a lot.
Yeah. You don't want to fool yourself into thinking like, oh, I'm just being realistic. I complain all the time about everything. I'm just being realistic. Like, come on, bro. You got to move on from that.
Like, we all understand what's going on is bad, but we're not constantly bringing it up all the time, but reminding everybody about exactly how bad it is. you can
Exactly.
still have good worthy optimism. You can still have this idea that things will change and that you are capable of making some form of change. Otherwise, you're just bringing everybody down, you know, losing their optimism.
No, no. We have a reason to be optimistic. Jesus Christ, brother.
Hurrah.
So this is Matthew chapter 5, 43 through 45. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust.
I'm a big believer in loving your enemy in a sense, if we lived in a world where all of our enemies became better people, that's like a near perfect world.
Definitely. You want the best for them.
Exactly. You wanna advocate for change and growth for the people who actively do wrong things.
Sure. Sure. Because there's always going to be people that are positioning themselves as your enemies, people that are committing these terrible things against you or against humanity. And this makes me think of the Apostle Paul, because before he became a Christian, before he became probably the most well-known apostle of them all, he was a Jew who was persecuting Christians. He was murdering Christians for their beliefs. Yet God still used him to write some of the, most well-known books in the Bible. So how much more can he use these people that we view as our enemies in our lives?
I mean, I see a lot of these things about how there's actually something recently I saw some random internet post about this person that was going around finding people on like a sexual offender registry and then just like murdering them. And all the comments under this post was saying like, "Oh, this guy's getting arrested. He should be getting a medal for this. Like, this is completely justified." Which I completely understand, the disdain and malice towards sexual offenders. Like, that's to me, sexually assaulting somebody is like one of the worst things you can do to somebody. It's incredibly traumatic and it can gravely affect them for the rest of their lives. But do we really want to foster this idea that we need to bring more hate to these people who have brought hate themselves? Like, violence perpetuates more violence. The more we, allow that to happen, the more we say, violence is okay in these circumstances. But if you really want to see changes, if you really want to see less people committing these sorts of acts, then you want to love them. You want to rehabilitate them. You want them to understand how bad it is, like how bad their actions were. Because I mean, a lot of these people will commit acts like this and be rehabilitated and completely understand how horrible their actions were. But you want to meet them with a hammer to the head or something. That sort of idea doesn't sit well with me. Um, we don't want to treat these people like they're irredeemable. Because how can we forgive ourselves for our own actions if we can't forgive people's for theirs? They're irredeemable. I'm irredeemable. Like, I can't come back from all the bad
Exactly.
things I've done.
Exactly. And if we're each honest with ourselves, we've done some pretty bad things, some pretty despicable things. So yeah, it's very tough in those situations with sexual assault and a lot of other crimes. I think because
Not easy at
in
all.
yeah, and specifically in the US, because our justice system is somewhat broken. Like, you'll hear about somebody who's convicted of rape and they go to prison for like 2 years. And it's like, really? Does that punishment really fit the crime that they committed
Yeah,
of
exactly.
like violating a woman violently? No, it doesn't. It's not justice. So it's like you have all these situations where justice is not served, and that's why part of why you have these vigilante people rise up. So it's understandable, but it's like, is this right? This is not the right way to approach these things. This is not what Jesus would do.
I would also argue that it's not necessarily our place all the time to enact justice like that.
Who are we in our own flawed and human ways to decide the right punishment for people like that?
To bring it back to the central thing that we are discussing is Jesus forgives us. Jesus has suffered on the cross for our sins, and we need to be very aware of that every day and in every interaction that we have with others. And ultimately that should lead us to be gracious, be kind, even to our enemies, to forgive the people that make trespasses against us, and to seek the best outcome in every situation.
Forgiveness is an incredibly difficult thing to do. If and when you are capable, you should always do it. Why not? End the cycle of hate and violence.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us. Please send us your thoughts, suggestions, and criticisms at masculinespiritpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to continuing this journey together, and have a blessed day.
Finding strength in submission, that's the mission. Breaking chains of tradition, new position. Walking in his vision, divine commission. This is masculine spirit, listen. Started as a boy with a heart full of questions, seeking validation through worldly possessions, learning wrong lessons about masculine expression. Depression hit heavy with painful suggestions that I wasn't worthy, wasn't making impressions, till I found his message and started progressing. Through every blessing and every testing, now I'm addressing the lies I was festering. Stand up, warrior, it's time to rise. Let his light shine through your eyes. Every battle makes you rise. This is where your spirit flies. Yeah, this is where your spirit flies. See, the thing about manhood, it isn't in muscles, though I built them daily through physical struggles, deeper than hustles and temporary puzzles. Spirit was muzzled till Christ came to shuffle my priorities, showing me purpose is foundational, rational, factual, but still inspirational, national, global, yet still congregational, building generational wisdom, that's operation. Finding strength in submission, that's the mission. Breaking chains of tradition, new position. Walking in this vision, divine commission. This is masculine spirit, listen. Biblical principles, giving me clarity. Carrying wisdom through all this disparity. Apparently strength isn't measured in scarcity. Rapid with charity, prayer, sincerity. Finding the warrior spirit inside of me, guided by a light that was hiding inside of me. Pride had to die for this ride to be righteous. See, Christ had to rise for this life to be bright in me. Sometimes we fall. Sometimes we crawl. But through it all, we hear his call. Building walls, standing tall, breaking falls, for our brothers. Yeah. Brothers, we stronger when walking together. Whether the weather is stormy or better, we measure our treasure in spiritual leather, and never say never to heavenly preference. Learning to lead when we're serving the least of us, freeing the beast while releasing the priest in us, seeking increase while the feeder was keeping us, chained to beliefs that are deeply deceiving us. Stand up, warrior, it's time to shine. Let your light lead down the line. Every brother by design. This is where our spirits climb. This is where our spirits stand as a beacon for the brothers still seeking. Show them strength isn't weakness when you're down on your knees. Every trial that tested me, every mile that pressed in me, built the man God blessed in me. Now I'm walking in destiny.